So, I've been in an Arcane craze, and if you don't know this already about me, now you're going to know. When I get obsessed with something, I usually watch a lot of reactions to the thing I'm obsessed with. When I was talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, 2 weeks ago, I was like, oh my gosh, Falcon and the Winter Soldier is so good. I enjoyed it so much. It surprised me. I didn't know that they were going to address so many real topics in this show, and I think they did it pretty well, and I've just really enjoyed this piece of media. So then I watched a bunch of people react to the episodes, and I was like, yes, yes, yes. I want to hear people's different opinions about this, because I really love this show. Yes, 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 yes. And then, I've watched a bunch of stuff about it, looked at a bunch of fan art of it, and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. Got on Falcon and the Winter Soldier TikTok, all that kind of stuff. Saw the memes, everything. Watched a bunch of interviews with the actors because I think that their chemistry and dynamic, they are just so funny and cool. And then I watched Arcane, not yesterday, but the day before yesterday. So, Sunday. And it was good. I've heard it was good. I wanted to see it. I saw ads for Arcane when it was first getting released. I thought it sounded a little cheesy because the lines were like Vi, and Vi, the redheaded woman that you see on the screen right here, right there. And she was just like, I'm gonna protect you from all the monsters. That was like the voice line or something that she had. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so cliche and cheesy. I don't think I want to see this, because this commercial was like cliche and cheesy. But then I watched the show because I heard people talking about it, and I was like, wait. Not only did I hear people talking about it because in real life, I was watching a bunch of videos, and then a lot of the commentary YouTubers who talk about shows that I like were making videos about Arcane. And I was like, wait, I really want to watch more of their videos, and this one happens to be about Arcane, and I'm slightly more interested in Arcane now. So I started the first 2 episodes before Sunday, last week, and then I finished it on Sunday, and I watched episode 3 through 9, and woo! Yep, it's a woo. It's really good. I enjoyed it, so I went through my same rabbit hole. I went to watch a bunch of people's reactions toward it. I listened to a bunch of video essays on why it was actually good. I kind of want to see the other side of the critic. I want to see people's opinions on what they would want to improve on Arcane. But I think I like hearing people's perspective on why they think something is good, because then I like implementing it in my own stuff. And this is a habit I've had ever since I was little, and every piece of media that I would watch, I would create original characters that are almost exactly the same as the characters that from the series I've just watched. I started it with Ever After High. If you haven't watched Ever After High, it is a kid's show about the descendants of fairy tale characters like Snow White, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Beauty and the Beast, so on, so forth. And they kind of work with the class struggle, but not in, they kind of work with, like, the struggle between, two sides as well, because, most shows are going to do that. It's very typical. But, and, but it's not, even though there is, like, a class difference between the two groups in Ever After High, it is, based on social hierarchy in a way, if that makes sense. It's based on what they're expected to do in their future, because it's kind of like the epitome of nepotism and the child taking whatever the parents made and, like, going up to that role. And I don't know if I'm explaining this right, but it's that. So I'll give examples. So the two groups are the royals and the rebels. The royals are royalty, and the whole point of this high school, Ever After High, is that they are supposed to follow their fairy tale parents' footsteps and reenact the fairy tales that their parents have done. So the main characters is a girl called Apple White. I'm going on a whole tangent, but I like this tangent, so I'm going to keep going, and then I'm going to circle back to Arcane, and then I'm going to circle back to this video. But, main character is this girl named Apple White, and she's the daughter of Snow White. And then another main character is a girl called Raven Queen, and she is the daughter of the Evil Queen. And Raven is a rebel because she does not want to reenact her mother's destiny. And Apple is a royal not only because she is actual royalty, but she also wants to reenact her mother's fairy tale of her eating the poison apple, sleeping for a while, and then waking up to find a prince and living her happily ever after. Raven doesn't want to do that, but not only because she doesn't want to fall in the fate of being a old witch casted out by society after she poisons Apple, but Raven also is a good-hearted girl, and she doesn't want to do anything malicious, especially since that Apple is her roommate, so she builds a connection with Apple, and she's like, why would I ever want to hurt you? So, Apple is also, like, building a connection with Raven, but she cannot understand why Raven would not want to like, support her in a way and help her with her dream. And Apple's dream is to fulfill the fairy tale of her getting poisoned and then waking up, finding her prince, and living happily ever after, replaying their parents' roles. And that's what all of, like, Ever After High season, it's what all of Ever After High is about, but I'm only going to talk about Ever After High season 1 because that's the best thing. Or I think it mixes into season 2 too, but I'm not sure. I haven't watched it in a while. This is all from memory of when I was a child. I watched this, like, when I was 8, and I was immersed because it's honestly really good storytelling. And, so I based a bunch of different little characters that I used to draw off of all the characters. I changed their names and I changed their looks a little bit, but they're inherently the same characters because I just loved that piece of material and I was obsessed with it, like I'm obsessed with Arcane now. Now, I haven't based any characters off of Arcane, but I have correlated it to something else I'm obsessed with, which is the Dream SMP. You probably should know about it because I talk about it pretty frequently here, but if you don't, it's, first of all, SMP is a survival multiplayer, survival multiplayer. That's what it stands for, SMP. But it's a platform in Minecraft where you can just play a game. Like, it doesn't even have to be, like, a story or anything, but these YouTubers and Twitch streamers played on this one server made by Dream, that's why it's called the Dream SMP, and ended up building a story off of it, and I ended up enjoying the story because I enjoy the content creators and the personalities and what they put and what they made their characters into. So, the plot of the Dream SMP is pretty captivating at times. I think it's very messy because it is so improved and it was not planned out to be a story or anything. They were just having fun and doing this stuff, and things may not line up perfectly. And there's so much different storylines because you can watch everyone's perspective because everyone is streaming their different POV. So that's what makes the Dream SMP really special for me. You can see everyone's different perspective and understand every one of their motives. And that's just like Arcane. Arcane is a show. It's based on... it's not based on. It's made by Riot Games and the animation company, Fortune, not Fortune, it's like Forshi, I think. I'm butchering that name probably, but it's a French animation company, and they've done the animation, and they've worked with Riot Games for a long time, and they just made amazing work. Oh, chef kiss. And they've worked to create this show where all the characters, you can understand all the characters' motives that they shine a spotlight on, and you can pretty much sympathize for every character. And with the Dream SMP is why I'm correlating it to Dream SMP again. Because I am so enamored by the Dream SMP and have been since January of 2021, which is almost coming up to a year, so I've liked Dream SMP for a year now. Wow! There is a problem because everyone streams their POV and so much goes on. There is hours and hours and hours of Dream SMP content, and people who want to get into the Dream SMP, at least the story side of the Dream SMP, and not just watch their favorite creators goof around and do whatever the heck they're doing. It's hard to get into because there are so many plot lines, so many characters, so many POVs that you can watch for one specific event, for anything that's happening ever. There's hours, there's thousands on thousands of pounds of hours, like, oh gosh. And some people have made, a lot of people have made, like, strides to trying to fix that problem with, like, for example, Evan MC Gaming, or Evan MC Games. I don't know if it's gaming or games. I think it's gaming. Anyway, that's their YouTube channel. That's his YouTube channel, Evan MC Games. And he did a summary on the Dream SMP. Obviously, he doesn't cover everything because it's impossible to cover every plot line and every character on the Dream SMP in a way because there's just so much. And that's kind of what I want to do. I want to do it in my own way because even though Evan MC Games videos are very helpful, they were very helpful for me when I first got into it. Back in January, I watched, like, his first video and I was like, oh, now I know what's going on. This makes a lot of sense. This is really interesting and it helps me understand what the heck all of this stuff is about. And I just want to help people in that way, but also tell it in the way that I've understood the story, because everyone has their own perspective on the character's perspective. And for some of the stuff and some of the focus on particular characters that Evan has, I disagree with, and I feel like he should have focus on other characters that he didn't have that much focus on. But you can't do everything, right? And if you want to see something and nobody's doing it, you gotta do it yourself. So that's what I'm attempting on doing. That will obviously take a long time, but I'm just trying to get together what I think is important with a story and how I would want to tell the story in my perspective, if that makes sense. And going back to Arcane, I think that Arcane is such a good example of showing so many different perspectives of different characters and dealing with social struggles in such a good way. So, yeah. So, I'm kind of using, like, the social struggles and, like, the way they've developed on every character's motive in a way where you can know where every character is coming from when they do what they're gonna do. In a way where I can potentially use for my own storytelling. So kind of what, now I'm going back to Ever After High and telling you why I even brought it up in the first place, kind of what I used to do with shows when I was little, like Ever After High, where I would get inspired and then make characters off of it based on the story and stuff like that. But instead of making characters, I'm just implementing world building and plot points more so than before. So, and now we get to why we're on this video. Arcane is what Korra should have been. If you don't know what Legends of Korra is, it is the sequel to Avatar: The Last Airbender, a really good show. Avatar: The Last Airbender is a kid's show, just like Ever After High, but it has complex ideas, and I'm not saying Ever After High is like Avatar: The Last Airbender, because it's not. Avatar is on a level of its own, but I'm just saying they're both kid shows with complex ideas that immerse people who are like adults and kids alike. And Avatar is a well-loved show, and a lot of people think it's almost close to perfection in some ways, because of just how good the whole show turned out. So, you know, when you ride off a success, you try to create more off of the big fandom that you get and the success that you get. So then they made Legends of Korra, which, I guess I have to explain the Avatar universe a little bit to explain Legend of Korra. So, in Avatar, there are 4 elements, and, you know, like, elements, how it's like, there are 4 elements, like, in real life, too. It's like fire, water, air, and earth. So that's like just like an Avatar, and those elements are what give like people so-called magical powers, but they don't call it magic in the Avatar world. They call it bending. And bending is like a mix of like martial arts and just like movement to manipulate whatever element that they have. So they will use a choreography to move water in a certain way, or move the earth in a certain way, such and such. And Marvel is a very Asian inspired universe. It's inspired by both like South Asian and like East Asian like culture. So you're gonna see like a lot of influence on like stuff like that. And everyone in Avatar is Asian. some people would think like the water tribe is like more, it has more references to cultures and like cultures that look a lot like Native American culture. So that too, but like everyone in the Avatar universe is like, there is no Native American in Avatar. There is no Japanese or Indian in Avatar. So, so there are the elements that I was talking about, right. You can have a water bender, and that person specializes in doing water. No one person can have more than one element. Even if you have a firebender parent and a waterbender parent, you're not going to have fire and water powers. It's not going to how it works. You might just get one, or you might get none and be a regular human non-bender. But there is one person who can harness all four elements, and that is the Avatar. And that has been grown like, it's like a generational thing. If you ever watched My Hero Academia, it's kind of like how One for All is passed through generation to generation. If you haven't watched My Hero Academia, that reference did not relate to you, and you still don't know what's going on. How can I say this? You know how, like, you can pass a generational heirloom, like a necklace, to your, like, your great grandmother has it, and then gives it to your great grandmother, and then it gives it to your great grandmother, and then it gives it to your great grandmother, and then it gives it to your grandmother, and it gives it to your mother, and then you have it. That's how that Avatar state is passed on. And it's like reincarnation in a way, so it's not just like family. So anyone could be the Avatar when they're reincarnated, and they're reincarnated when the last Avatar has died. And the way the Avatar is like passed on, so it's a cycle. I might get this wrong, but I think it goes, the cycle is fire, earth, air, water, and then water, fire, earth, air, so far, so on, so forth. It keeps going in that cycle. So after the fire avatar dies, there's going to be a rebirth in the avatar, and the birth of the next avatar is going to start somewhere in a family that is part of the Earth Nation or whatever. Like, they're going to be naturally more, they're naturally going to pick up the Earth powers more because they are on the Earth one. And then when the Earth one dies and then it goes to the air, they're going to be naturally a better airbender at first, and then they're going to learn the rest of them. So they have the capability to have the other ones, but they don't have it all at the same time when they're born. They have to learn it. They also have to learn their original element. Like, they don't just master their original element, but it's going to come easier to them. So that's how it works. So that's just how the avatar state works, or not that avatar state per se, but just like stuff of the avatar. And then Legends of Korra, like I said, is a sequel to Avatar: The Last Airbender, and Korra is the next avatar. She is after Avatar Aang, which he is the main character of Avatar: The Last Airbender. And she has to deal with, blah blah blah, her avatar powers, and all the stuff that goes up there. And this video is about how Arcane is what Korra should have been, because Korra was not as amazingly praised as Avatar was. You know how some sequels kind of flop? In the sense of Korra being compared to Avatar, it flopped. I still enjoy Korra as a show. I think it's really fun and engaging, and I think there's some really garbage parts of that show. And they've got really screwed because they are working for a network and they have to cater to kids, and they just crashed and burned, okay? But it's not a horrible show. Like Korra, The Legend of Korra is not a horrible show. It's on its own. It's very fun, and if you are interested into what I've said about it so far, you can watch it because it's fun. And I think season 1 is actually pretty fun as well. It's actually not horrible. Spoiler, I'm going to say one spoiler. I'm just going to give a reason why I don't enjoy it as much as I could have enjoyed it. It focuses on a lot of weird love triangle stuff that is really unnecessary and is really dumb. Like, they really didn't need to add it at all. So that's one of the negatives of season 1, but the overall plot and setting of season 1 is really fun, and I found it interesting, and the social commentary interesting. Not the best, as I'm watching a video on how it isn't the best, but I found it fun. Season 2 was more on the garbage side, but it had its character moments, and you know, when you got the good character to pull you through the heaping pile of trash a show is, like Voltron. That's what made me watch the rest of Voltron after the writing got like I was just like, my characters, I hope they get a good ending. They did not get a good ending. But it's just showing that, like, characters will pull you through something that you're not even, like, invested in the plot anymore, and you're just there for the characters, so they can pull you through. So if I didn't make Korra unappealing enough for you, then maybe you will watch it and see for yourself. Anyway, so this person is gonna give the reasons why Arcane and Korra are similar in like the way they're set up, but then Arcane just exceeds Korra. Is that even the right word? Exceed? I don't know. Let's watch. I might as well just say I had this so you could see, like, the YouTuber and what the video is, so you can search it up for yourself and give a view to this video, because credit is always important. I don't even know. Pilgram's Pass. This video is Arcane is what Korra should have been. Pilgram's Pass. Pilgram's Pass is the YouTuber, guys. So check them out. Give them a like. Give them a comment. Give them a subscribe, maybe, if you are interested in their content. I find this analysis really interesting, and I found this person's points very good. So that's why I decided to stream this, because I was like, oh my gosh, this is giving me so much ideas, giving me so much to think about. And I was like thinking all brainstorming things in my head, and I was like, wow, I was coming up with revelations. So I just wanted to share that with the stream. That's why I love streaming. I just feel like it's just a place to talk about what I love, and I just do it so, like, nonchalantly, like, it's like no pressure at all. So very fun for me.
video game Harley Quinn. But this show was quite the experience. But you don't need me to tell you that it was good. Every other YouTuber is already saying it. What I wanted to discuss is the feeling that hit me almost immediately by the time I got to episode 4. Because that's when I realized that Arcane is Legend of Korra, but better. And Arcane is one of the best mainstream works of political commentary to come out from a big corporation of entertainment in the last 5 years or so. So how is Arcane like Korra? Well, in their respective first seasons, it's almost the same story, right? 1. It's a fantasy Manhattan-type city powered by magic. We barely see anything outside the city, apart from the first scenes in other cultural regions to give context to character backgrounds. 2. The setting is cosmopolitan and multicultural, involving characters from various different backgrounds, ethnicities, cultures, and social classes, etc., making our cast of characters diverse. And this diversity often feeds into the character conflicts present in the season, because the characters have to deal with their differences, though in Korra that's very poorly explored. 3. The city is a center of innovation and new technology that changes combat and social relations, giving a rise to a new type of elite, or an insurgent elite, that wants to replace the old elite. 4. It has an intense internal problem of inequality, which is so endemic to the social fabric of the city as to be an actual existential threat. 5. The city is run by a council who have been mismanaging the situation the whole time, leaving a giant mess for our main characters to have to deal with as they enter into the story. Kind of amazing that both Piltover and Republic City and Korra have basically the same exact government model, right? Little coincidences like this just really stood out for me. 6. The city we're stuck in for the season was founded with the lofty goal of heralding a new era beyond the traditions and historical baggage of the vast nations surrounding it. This city is one about progress, and it preaches equality between the diverse populations that inhabit it. But equality is something this city doesn't really live up to, which could be its undoing. 7. Both shows try to show that bad and good people exist on all sides of the issue, and it shows people reaching across the social divide to work together to solve the problems. Which is actually a point in favor I have with Korra, because Korra was responsible in its messaging, and also it had the cojones to criticize the excess of egalitarianism, which is brave on its part. Good work, Mike and Brian. That was pretty great actually, and I might do a video on that. That's something that I really like about Korra, especially in this era where people discuss the notion of equality of outcome versus equality of opportunity, etc. Korra does deserve praise for this. Here, Korra, have a cookie. Anyway, 8. The bad guy is an evil revolutionary who emerges from the neglected issues of the city like a ghost who emerges from the darkness to haunt the foundations of the city. He leads an army of devoted followers, has a dedicated lieutenant. Oh, and the bad guy is killed by a family member at the end, being all tragic and stuff because the behavior of the bad guy was his own undoing, because the violence that he perpetuated stained his own relationship with the people related to him, and this got to him eventually. 9. The main character is a violent chick who's...
Sorry if you can hear barking. Or cars. That's just the place where I live. It's always going to be the place where I live, unless I move. So, yeah. Sorry about that.
Tough as nails and is quick to solve things by force and violence. She's an expert fighter, training from a very young age, and has a bit of a temper problem. She's impulsive, rude, sometimes downright hostile to those who challenge how she thinks, but despite her flaws, she's a natural leader, with a good heart, and is always willing to do the right thing, especially at the end there. She tries to be a hero when it counts. I could go on, bros, I really could, but I feel like you got the point already. Like I said, the setting is exactly the same, the main character herself is basically the same in everything but background, and the main conflict of the plot is the same. And the villain has the same goal of installing a new political order according to his ideals. Right? Same. But why does Arcane do it better than Korra? Well, I actually think it's for 2 reasons, really. Compared to Korra herself, Arcane's main character is way more understandable, likable, and genuinely heroic at times, despite her flaws. And secondly, Arcane spends its time much better than Korra, by always showing us scenes which are relevant to the story's conflict and plot, or the backgrounds and motivations of all the other key characters in the plot, allowing us as the viewers to get a deep look at these people.
I think reason 1 that Pilgram Pass gives is a little bit debatable, And I've also watched a whole talk about the likability and how likability of characters and how likability is like used on women characters, female characters a lot more than men. Not that I'm not like you know, not accusing of anything, but it was just interesting that Pilgram Pass used the phrase likable to describe why Korra isn't as good as Vi. So found that interesting, and I said I kind of understand because in season one, Korra, spoilers, I guess, but not really. I don't know. Spoilers, I guess, to their personalities. Okay. But I'm not gonna give like spoilers on plot or anything, so I don't know how of a spoiler it's gonna be. But Korra is very headstrong, but as we know, Vi is very headstrong as well. But the difference is, I feel like because of the subplot that I mentioned, that is a spoiler before about the love triangle. I already said it, so too late. Go cry. The subplot about the love interest really takes away a lot of the compassion that Korra could have shown having for certain people. I guess this is spoilers because I'm going to be talking about more of that subplot in another character and how a specific moment just reminded me of what Pilgrim Pass might be talking about. Their Korra's love triangle is between the two main women, Asami and Korra, and Mako. They both like Mako likes Asami and Korra, and Asami and Korra both like Mako, and blah blah blah. And then Mako has a brother named Bolin, and Bolin likes Korra, and so it's really kind of like a love square, but not really because he's not really in it. There's just like one moment where he like tries to take her on a date, and she's like, yeah, but like it's not really a date. They're just eating food, but he's thinking of it as a date, and she's obviously showing no interest into him. So she's not like leading him on or anything, but he's just like very helpful and naive in a certain way. And then she's like kissing Mako, and then he comes in with like a bouquet of flowers to give to her, and then he sees that and he like runs away crying and stuff like that. And that was like kind of just like shoehorned in there for like comedy because Bolin happens to be the comedic relief character in the show quite a lot. Even though he definitely does have a character that you can really just like develop on, and like he doesn't have to just be comedic relief. Sometimes they like dumb down his character and kind of just like strip away like the good parts of his character for him at the expense of him being comedic relief, which really sucks, but happens. And I feel like that scene could like show, I don't know, could give the impression of less compassion than Vi. Vi is never in a Vi does have her own love interest in the series. It's not a love triangle. Why did I say that like that? Triangle. Anyway, it's not a love triangle, like in Korra, which just makes everything easier. I think love triangles can be done, but they're kind of annoying. I don't know. For me, they're annoying because I just don't want to see people fight over like a person in that prospects. I don't know if that's the right word, but I don't know. I think they can be engaging for sure, and that's probably why they put it in Korra in the first place, but that one was not fun or engaging at all. So they really just use that cliche trope and bleh, bleh, bleh. And that's like another thing that Arcane does better. When they do use cliche tropes, they subvert them and they do different things with them, and they make them so well. And then the things that they do keep as like a cliche, not only do like they subvert them, but like they just do them in such high quality that you're just like, you know what, even though I saw that so many times, this one was done so well. I don't care that it's something that like I already know, because it's something I already know and it's done amazingly. And in Korra, the love triangle, a cliche trope, is done not well at all. So, about likability in Korra. Another moment, I feel like Korra is just very disagreeable with everyone in her cast, and maybe because Korra has such an unfriendly relationship with Asami in season 1, like because of like the love triangle and because of the whole thing of this is a lot of spoiler plot, so maybe not. But because of their status in the position in the Avatar worlds, it gives a little bit of just an unfriendly relationship to like one of the only, like, the co-starring woman. And like in contrast, in Arcane, co-starring woman next to Vi is Jinx, her sister, which, even though they have a good relationship at the start, and even though it's rocky, they this is a spoiler, so sorry, but even though it's rocky, they try to keep it together. I don't know if that's that much a spoiler. They try to keep their relationship together. And with Caitlyn, she just builds a relationship with Caitlyn, and it's very positive and healthy and great. So, like in Arcane, the women relationships of the main characters are much better and just like more positive than the ones in Korra. And the reason why they're in a way of clashing with each other is because of a man, which is even worse. Like, ill. Let's not see that.
as well as the city.
All right. I'm back. Sorry for the interruption. Sorry for the mute. I was talking about Korra was just beefing with a lot of people in season 1, okay? And even though Vi was beefing with a lot of people, she had like reason to, besides like just like she had like reasons to beef with the people she was beefing with. That were beyond just being petty and making sly remarks for just the sake of being petty, if that makes sense. Like, for example, I mean, I guess you could say that Korra was frustrated with just like her place, and she couldn't understand how to do airbending right. This is spoilers. And that's why she was rude to Tenzin. And then you go to Vi, where she is being disobedient to like I'll do like someone who has like a similar status to like Tenzin in Vi's situation. She was being rude to Vander because and defying Vander because she doesn't believe that the way he's going about it is right, and because he seems to be working with people that have hurt her people in so many ways that she's seen, she wants to go against what he's doing. And that is a little bit more complex than Korra's reason for being rude and going against Tenzin. So, yeah. I guess that could be an example why Pilgram Pass might say that Korra's more unlikable than Vi.
Built over itself and its underbelly
Wait,
of all the other key characters in the plot.
I'm so confused.
Much better than Korra, by always showing us scenes which are relevant to the story's conflict and plot, or the backgrounds and motivations of all the other key characters in the plot, allowing us as the viewers to get a deep look at these people, as well as the city of Piltover itself and its underbelly. Think about it. Every moment is spent showing us the inequality of the city and the situation, or some intimate moment with one of these characters. Never does Arcane waste our time with something as irrelevant as a random sporting event with no ties to the main conflict, or with a freaking love triangle stolen from the broken dreams of Stephanie Meyer. I have no problem with her, by the way. She just really milked that teen love drama. It's actually quite impressive. But one thing that always bothered me in Korra Season 1, where is the non-bender oppression? Where is it? Where is the institutional subjugation of the non-benders, man? We don't see any. It doesn't seem any easier for benders to get high-paying jobs or to live in the nicer area of the city. There's plenty of homeless and poor people who are benders, including 2 of our main characters, by the way. In fact, the richest person in the city is a non-bender who thinks he's oppressed. Oh. Is Korra actually genius commentary about the true state of first world society? I'm just kidding. But I mean, Mike and Brian could have been commenting on how these different groups of benders and non-benders actually have a lot in common, and the bending and non-bending elites are actually exacerbating the conflict between these two identities for their own selfish power grab while they get the lower classes fighting each other. This would be a...
I feel like this is one of the cool things that I like about this video and Pilgrim's Passing is because Pilgrim's Passing's theories on like how Korra could just be so much more nuance is so cool. So more complex. It's so cool. I don't even know if I use nuance right. Psh. I think I did though. In the context I've heard it. Yeah, I think so. So like the theories are just so cool and like if Korra could have achieved that, that would have been such a dope story. It's almost sad. Anyway, we'll keep going.
Poignant message for our era, or maybe they were talking about how many social issues are in fact an illusion, driven out of proportion by insane ideologues who then make everything worse by driving people into a frenzy with a highly exaggerated victim narrative, which isn't really true. But I doubt it. Chances are it's just bad writing, considering how they keep bringing up firebender crime violence who's killing everyone's parents apparently.
You know what? When Pilgrim's Passing is like, it's probably not all that complex, and it's probably just bad writing. I feel like that is a lot of things, like, for instance, like Steven Universe, and, like, the whole Pink Diamond, and like, how Steven Universe can be looked at in such a complex lens, if you really dive into the theories and symbolism, and really try to interpret it in that type of lens. But the content itself does not like give off all of that stuff without the people theorizing it. So it's kind of like how the piece can be so like complex because of what people add onto it and not the story itself, if that makes sense.
Where are these firebenders coming from? And Tenzin talks like the non-benders are generally marginalized, and we see Unalaq bullying the non-benders in a way probably meant to show the plight of the non-benders, but that doesn't work because what Unalaq is doing is a reaction to equalist terrorism. It's not a systemic tendency of Republic City itself. It's a new social development. So it doesn't work because the non-benders didn't have the problem before, so how will that justify the equalists? Or at least explain their movement and their plight? None of what goes on in the first season of The Legend of Korra generally shows any real social problems between the benders and the non-benders. No institutional problem, at least, derived from a failure of society. Firebender criminals are not enough to showcase a deep social imbalance.
If anything, I feel like there's more like systemic problem with the prejudice against firebenders, because not only are like firebenders subject to be like the target of people saying, oh, like, you're a firebender, I'm not gonna like engage with you because of, you know, the past. Oh, you don't know. Well, in Avatar, there's 1 second muting. I'm back? Question mark, question mark, question mark? Sorry again. If you're new to my stream, mutes happen quite frequently. I try not, but like, life is inevitable and things have to be muted.
Here, which is frustrating because there was a very easy way to do this. If the Legend of Korra wanted to show non-benders being slighted by society, they could have just exploited a very natural power imbalance between the benders and the non-benders, right? This is what they could have done. They could have showed us benders getting a fast-track career into the military or as high-ranking police officers, making basically all benders have an easy life option, complete with a cushy and privileged career just waiting for them. As a result, the benders are on average wealthier and live in the good part of town, and they dominate the infrastructure of the state, which makes them politically very influential, more than the percentage of their general population when compared to the non-benders. Because the benders are indispensable to the power of the state, which means they keep getting preferential treatment by the government and keep getting high pensions when they retire and have a fast track to healthcare treatment, and also they receive the best government schools for their kids, since the state has an interest in keeping these human weapons healthy and well trained and educated and comfortable, because they are the primary enforcers of the state. By comparison, the non-benders become mostly abandoned by the government, and they would have less access to privileged government careers, and mostly work as manual laborers, or at best as overworked pencil pushers and administrators, which would be more replaceable than the benders. And they get less investment and have lower pensions and salaries. And if you still want the rich non-bender Henry IV guy, you could have him demonstrate how non-benders have to be extra smart and full of gusto and enter the private sector to thrive and pull themselves by their own bootstraps, because the government certainly won't help them, so they have to do it themselves with good old-fashioned business savvy. But even then, these business tycoon non-benders get hampered with crippling taxes to pay for the cushy lives of all those high-ranking bender officers. But we don't see any of that in the show. There might be hints of what I said, but that's never really explored. And I know that we do see that non-benders feel intimidated by benders, who often take advantage of the weakness of non-benders by extorting them for money or whatever. But this is done by criminals in the show, and criminals are outside society. We don't see society itself being unjust to non-benders at all. Mako and Bolin's poverty ruins the whole idea that non-benders have it particularly bad. In fact, having benders be criminals kind of implies that they, the benders, are the marginalized ones, and they use bending force as a way to make money out of desperation. And having Mako and Bolin being forced to enter a gang to survive, that gang being the same one that Amon later accuses of oppressing non-benders, kind of implies that the gang is made up of poor and desperate benders. That society, in the Legend of Korra, is failing the benders and not the non-benders, if you think about it. Having the oppressive benders be mostly gangsters and mobsters was probably just a mistake by the writing staff, because they wanted to make it more 1920s-esque, so you gotta bring Al Capone. But that ruins the entire message. You have to have the institutions of society doing the injustice, not...
Ad! Sorry for the ad. I cannot solve the ad. I'll just turn off the sound, because I don't want to get DMCA'd if this is a DMCA. Another one? Don't try what this ad is doing. Don't. Alright, now back to the video.
Society doing the injustice, not... whatever. If the Korra writers wanted to show that the non-benders had it bad, then what they should have done is show Mako and Bolin getting temporarily homeless as children because of the tragic death of their parents, and then in the streets they become friends with a fellow homeless child who is a non-bender. But once the government finds out that Mako and Bolin are benders, they swoop in to enroll the brothers into a fancy boarding school for bender children, preparing them to become military officers. But their homeless non-bender friend is left behind by the government, and maybe this kid then joins the Equalists because they offer him food and shelter, and he later becomes a fanatic under their training and tutelage. And this could have created an interesting conflict when Mako and Bolin have to face their old friend later on in the story. And the brothers and their friend are on opposite sides, and maybe they could have explored how life treated them differently. And
That's so good. That is so good. So good.
they're on different sides politically, but they have to, I mean, who knows what they could have done, while not focusing on, I don't know, bending MMA or some crap. In the Korra show that we got, the Equalist movement just seems primarily motivated by envy, because they don't have magic powers, which is fine. It's not a bad motivation actually, but then that completely changes the social message, which was apparently what they were trying to say. I mean, an evil organization motivated by envy would be a poignant message. Envy politics can be a problem, but here it's to the point where I have no clue what Korra is trying to say. Either it's doing some insane four-dimensional commentary chess thing so controversial in our era that it would make Twitter explode with the hellish rage of the inferno, or it's just mired in bad writing, which completely ruins what they were really trying to say. Whatever the case, in Korra, the social commentary in Arcane is actually way better, for two simple reasons. Their point is clear, yet mature and nuanced. They could have easily gone the rich people bad route, or taken the other side, and I thought they were going to take a side by a second there, but they completely blew away my expectations. In Arcane, we actually see the problems of the city. We're not just told of the problems. It's in the aesthetics, the lighting, the clothing the different characters wear, the type of places they live, and their own personal conflicts and personalities which are shaped by the environments they come from. Like the character Victor, who used to live in Zon, the poor area, and now he has a crippling disease because of overexposure to toxic air, which is common from where he's from. And this condition which he carries for his whole life is a huge part of his motivation, and his character background, and the conflict he has, and the plot. Everything is connected to the conflict at hand. And we also see diverse backgrounds of every character, and these backgrounds are well developed. And we see the rising social conflict in Piltover through many different angles, through the perspectives of these characters that we come to love, which means that we start seeing this conflict through many different points of view. And it's not just one narrative, it's not just one thing that the show is preaching to us. We have to actually address reality from many different angles and understand that things are complicated. And each of the different characters are trying to solve the issues in a way that they seem to understand, and a lot of them don't understand the full picture. And we get the sense that the key to make things better is just to step back and try to see all the different moving parts, and not just have one ideological view of things. It's a very interesting thing that the show is doing. Also, the characters are more than a simple stereotype, right? You have more than just the rich girl, or the evil henchman, or the bad guy, which is the case in Korra. Although Asami does get more of a development later on, but in the first season she really is just the rich girl. The Arcane characters are incredible because the show is doing two things, which is actually very rare for a story. One, they present the characters in such a way that they are their own persons with their own particular interests and motivations and their own natures, to the point that they feel like real people. Yet, at the same time, they do two. They make these characters archetypes that represent different demographics in the real world that are involved with the real social issues that they're commenting on. And what is amazing is that any one of us, audience members, could be represented by one of these characters or archetypes, because any one of us could be part of one of the demographics that they're portraying in the show. I myself fall into a demographic portrayed by one of the characters. Kudos if you guys can guess down in the comments which one. But here, let's look at these characters and what they represent. Jace. Jace represents the new tech elite who creates new inventions that make him become a new member of the elite, because he becomes indispensable to the new infrastructure of the state through his mastery of technology, which means that he has to become one of the elites of the state. Is it any wonder that Riot Games portrays this guy as so heroic? It couldn't be, because the Riot Games guys themselves are part of this young, rich, new tech elite, right? It's okay, I'm not judging. I like Jace, he's one of my favorite characters in the show. But yeah, it's no coincidence that he's such a good guy. He represents the demographic that the people behind the show are a part of. Rich tech guys. Almost a hero fantasy for them, but it's fine. Who doesn't want to be a hero? Also, Echo. Echo represents the heroic young person from an impoverished background who seeks to help his community, but he is not a revolutionary type because he is motivated by his love for the people of his community and not hatred for the privileged. So he just focuses on making things better and not getting back at the system. Mel and Caitlin. Mel and Caitlin are the rich young people with good hearts who want to use their positions to help others. But Caitlin also represents the type of rich person who is ashamed of their comfortable life and seek to face the pain head-on in their career type or their life choices in order to get in touch with the real world and with people from unfortunate backgrounds and see how they live. People like Caitlin want to deal with reality by escaping their own comfortable bubbles, while Mel is different. She's part of that rich elite, which is from a brutal family, and she seeks to be more gentle and soft-hearted. So yeah, Caitlin and Mel, two different rich girls from two different types of elite. Caitlin is from the bourgeois rich elite. Mel is from the more violent warrior class type elite, or dictatorial elite, right? By the way, Mel is my favorite character. I don't have waifus, because I'm not a degenerate, but if I did engage in waifusing of cartoon characters, well, let's just say Jace is a lucky bastard. Alright, Heimdegger. Is that his name? The little teddy bear? He represents the old elite with the well-intentioned, old-timey values, but he's out of touch. Zuko. Zuko represents the crime lord and the revolutionary, who are often one and the same in real life. Just ask the guys in the FARC in Colombia, or the Comando Vermelho in Rio de Janeiro. Zuko preaches high ideals, but he's actually making everything worse in his own community that he pretends to be serving by spreading violence and crime. Fun fact, guys, crime actually hurts poor people the most, as the show itself reveals. The rich can make do with private security, and crime mostly gets in the way of people from these poor communities and prevents them from starting their own businesses, which makes them even poorer. Anyway, Victor. Victor represents the guy from poor origins who rises to the top with his brilliance and hard work. And Jinx? Everybody's crazy ex-girlfriend! I'm kidding. I'll talk more about her and other characters in another video, maybe, depending on how well this one does. By the way, did I mention that Mel's my favorite character? Her, Jace, Victor, and Vander are my favorite characters. As for Vi, Vi is interesting. She represents the person from the hard part of society who comes to hate crime for the damage that it's doing to their own communities, and they tend to join the police, precisely to help clean things up. Vi represents some of the heroic types from tough backgrounds who come to see the criminals festering in the underworld as the real problem of their communities, and so working with the enforcers is a way that Vi finds to root out the criminals in an attempt to make her poor community stable for legitimate business, as well as helping them have a peaceful life. Kind of like what Echo is doing, though Echo is the community leader type. I don't want to get any more political than I already have been, so I won't say much more. But defunding the enforcers would not improve things in Zon. I'm just saying. I like Vi, even if she's very much the Korra of Arcane. She pretty much is the equivalent of Korra, in many ways, if you think about it. There are differences, sure. Vi isn't the chosen one, for instance, and she's not privileged like Korra. The latter is basically royalty, considering who her father and her uncle are, and she's also pampered by a secret cabal of mystics, because she's the Avatar. Meanwhile, Vi grew up in a toxic favela where the air alone gives you lung cancer. But in personality, fighting style, personal ethos, ideals, and being the protagonist, Vi is basically like Korra, but much better and more likable. Except she has a worse haircut! The background differences make all the difference, because people, myself included, complain endlessly about Korra's attitude and her behavior, but no one really complains about Vi. Why? Why Vi? Why no cry by Vi? Vi no sly. That's why. My point is, we all understand where Vi is coming from, and we feel her pain. She's harsh, rude, aggressive, quick to go out alone. She doesn't work well with others. She's bossy, has difficulty with authority. She's always wanting to be the alpha. and put other people down. But we like her because we know where she's coming from. She's the way she is because she comes from a harsh background. She's a tough girl from a tough place, and she's trying to survive. She's seen her friends die when she was very young, and she's gone hungry from time to time. She wants to protect her family, and her love towards her family tends to trigger her mama lion instincts. But the point is, she has reason for her behavior. Clear.
Kind of like what I was saying, with, why I was guessing why Pilgram Pass thought that Vi was more likable. It's because Vi has more understandable reasons to be rude and harsh, while Korra in season 1 doesn't. She is like that way for kind of no reason, for the most part. Maybe the example I gave wasn't the best. Most of the shows I talk about I haven't seen in a while. Arcane is freshest in my mind because I watched it the day before yesterday. But I haven't watched Korra in at least 2 years. I watched it last year, but I only watched particular episodes. I didn't watch season 1 because season 1 is not my favorite season. Spoiler alert, it's season 3. Season 3 is so good. Anyway, yeah.
And understandable reasons. Sympathetic reasons. Why in the world is Korra the way she is? Who peed in her noodles, you know what I'm saying? Characters like her are better off humble, like Caitlyn, or gentle, like Mel. If you want to have a privileged character be like Korra, and be the protagonist at the same time, so that she can grow out of it, you better have her improved by the first season. Because if this carries on until the rest of the seasons, heaven help me, man, I'm gonna lose my... Anyway, to reiterate what I've said before, Arcane's immense popularity proves that people were...
And by the way, Korra does improve her acts a lot. She does improve, but in the first season, she is very... She is very brutish and rude and it's annoying and disrespectful for kind of no reason. She does get much better, and I think her overall character development is actually really good from the course of season 1 to season 4 and how she's grown. But yeah, season 1, if you were like, oh, I'm tired of the love triangles, I'm tired of this annoying protagonist at the end of season 1, and you watch season 2, you go either stop the season 1 or you go to season 2 and you're like, oh my gosh, this season was so trash, I'm not going to even see season 3, which is a mistake because season 3 is literally so good. But anyway, if those bad parts just made you stop watching the show, you would have never been able to see the potential, and that's why season 1 should have at least hinted to it or make her improve just a little bit, slightly. You don't need to give her whole character development in season 1, but at least a little bit.
We're ready to love Korra. Korra fans have less arguments now. Arcane has everything Korra had, and no one is complaining about Arcane, which means that Korra fans don't have an easy excuse anymore. Oh, you just don't like grounded and gritty political thrillers. No, that's Arcane. Oh, you just can't handle all that empowered estrogen. No, that's Arcane. It's the writing, my friends. Korra had bad writing. It's just the writing. But it's okay to like Korra, guys. I like a few things in that show, which I might talk about one day, like I said. Anyway, it is important to note that Vi does have her selfish moments like Korra, and she's not exactly pristine morally. She's callous with the lives of others, even children, and she's too quick to violence. But of course, because she's not as wise as best girl over here. But she does have a heroic and selfless moment in the first act, when she's willing to give herself up to de-escalate things with the enforcers, who are basically looking for whoever stole the equivalent of enriched uranium. So you can bet that things are getting tense with the fuzz, right? But Vi is willing to give herself up and make up for her mistake, despite her hot-headedness and anger issues. I don't recall Korra doing something similar. She just gets captured. But anyway, yeah, Korra and Arcane are shows that basically are very similar. They even have small details being the same, like how both cities in the setting have a council as the main executive body, but the council is way more developed in Arcane. In Korra, I can't tell what the heck is going on.
That's true. They don't really let us understand any of the other council members' personalities besides what's his name? Torak, I think his name is, the guy who's standing up in blue. They really only give him character development, while everyone on the council in Arcane have distinct. I mean, they have more character development than the people here. Some of them, like, you can understand most of the characters. The only ones I wouldn't know is the black lady with the Corvat is not the right word. The thing on her neck, it's like, it looks like a bunch of bolts, but it also looks like the thing that they wear in like 16th century Europe. That royalty wear in 16th century Europe. I forgot what it's called. The ruffs. It looks like a ruff, but metal. Ruff. I don't really know much about her character in Arcane. And then there's also like a robot dude. Like, I feel like we get characterize him a little bit better than her. And then there's the and I think that's it, because we get pretty much everyone else on the council's like view, I'm pretty sure. So they don't have some people who are not as developed, but you kind of, if you don't like know their whole backstory or like whatever they're coming from, you kind of know their personality and how they act on certain things with the little lines they have and the things that they do in the background in the animation. So, and this you don't even get that. You only get development on like 2 characters. So yeah.
Who are these idiots in the background?
Yeah,
How
who
the
are
heck
they?
does the council work? Who cares, right? Let's go back to watching sports. Or that ridiculous love drama. Teen romance. There's nothing more terrible than that. While in Arcade, we know that the council is run by the
Sorry for the mutes. Sorry if you can hear instruments in the background.
Captains of different economic sectors, and Jace invents an entirely new sector of the economy, so he becomes a council member. We also get to know some of the douchebags in this government body, and we understand that Piltover is a corporatocratic oligarchy, and Zahn works much the same way, but the oligarchic business tycoons in charge are actually mafia bosses who run the crime empires. But Zahn and Piltover, they mirror each other, which is interesting. And Zuko benefits from the inequality of his own system, of which he is the undisputed leader. And it's in his interest to keep people below him addicted to toxic substances, which makes him a giant frickin' hypocrite when he talks about, oh, the Piltover, they hate people of Zahn. So do you, buddy. So do you. And it's funny how the violent chaos he nurtures, represented by Jinx herself, gets him killed. This is typical for revolutionary types, by the way. They get devoured by their own chaos. But as bad as Zuko is, Piltover, or Topside, as it's called sometimes, is indeed a decadent, degenerate environment filled with spoiled, selfish, out-of-touch a-holes who are indeed failing the poor and downtrodden people of Zahn, while satisfying their own disgusting hedonism. And the people they could help are suffering immensely in neglect. But it's good that we see this old elite getting replaced with a new one, which is happening in the show. But it is tragic that Heimdegger is the one who's replaced, and not that other douchebag over there. Heimdegger is fine, just a little out of touch, but then he starts to see how people in Zahn are living poorly and probably will do things better. I like him. Sad that Jace felt that he had to. Anyway, I'm getting off track. Anyway, Victor and Caitlin should also replace some of those council members. Also, did I mention that Mel is best girl? What can I say? I have a thing for classy ladies. But yeah, the social commentary in Arcane is quite complex, and there is no clear solution. The problem stems from reality itself and how it works, and the characters who are in conflict with each other are mostly reacting to the situation around them, which leads to several different tragedies. In comparison with Korra, when Amon is defeated, out of nowhere, the equalist movement just dies, making the whole political message and the grievances in the show operate on video game logic.
Yeah, I also didn't like that. I was like, why are we not seeing the remnants of this? Like, what? So, yeah.
Oh, you killed the final boss! Yay, everything is solved! But no, that cheapens the entire plot of the show and makes the conflict seem too light with no real gravity. In Arcane, when the big villain dies, the chaos he unleashes rages on, threatening to destroy everything, which will test the virtues of our heroes later on in Season 2, and they're already under considerable strain. But this just adds to the gravitas of what we're witnessing, and it makes us feel like what we're watching has real value, because the world is more like this. There's no final boss that you can defeat. The problem is in ourselves. However, one thing I have to admit is that despite all the differences between The Legend of Korra and Arcane, they do take a similar position in the messaging. Both shows are critical of the revolutionary sentiments, and both shows are pro-reform, which is based and reasonable. Pilled. Even if it angers some YouTube armchair revolutionaries who might be promoting revolutions from their platforms, I don't know, that seems to be the implications of what some of the things they're saying when they complain about Korra or Arcane being too centrist. But we have plenty of historical data to know that Korra and Arcane are actually just being responsible in their messaging. Most revolutions in history, from Russia to China to France, have ended badly, causing terrible instability. France is in its 5th republic for a reason. And a lot of people don't know this, but modern terrorism as a concept and practice was developed by French secular revolutionaries. That's right. It's associated with religious extremism now, but it was pioneered by the Jacobin pro-equality types.
Oh.
But yeah, what Arcane seems to understand, as well as Korra, for all its faults as a story, is that revolutions usually don't work in creating true freedom and a better peaceful society, for very natural reasons. Reasons which are derived from the very origins and function of the revolution. Revolutions create violent extremists and militarize the would-be reformers, and they would turn the would-be reformers into a military organization, which is by definition one that centralizes authority and power under a hierarchy based on violence, which makes it doubly ironic if the revolution is based on universal equality.
Wait. I need to listen to the thing about revolution again.
Republic for a reason. And a lot of people don't know this, but modern terrorism as a concept and practice was developed by French secular revolutionaries. That's right. It's associated with religious extremism now, but it was pioneered by the Jacobin pro-equality types. But yeah, what Arcane seems to understand, as well as Korra, for all its faults as a story, is that revolutions usually don't work in creating true freedom and a better peaceful society.
That is so, oh my god! My like brain is just like
For very natural reasons. Reasons which are derived from the very origins and function of the revolution. Revolutions create violent extremists and militarize the would-be reformer. And they would turn the would-be reformers into a military organization, which is by definition one that centralizes authority and power under a hierarchy, a hierarchy based on violence, which makes it doubly ironic if the revolution is based on universal equality. Yes, Supreme Comrade, we will march under your orders for equality. These revolutions empower the most violent and savage political extremists, necessarily. Extremists who will always rise to the top during the violent chaos they often cause themselves. And once this militarized force takes over and they get power over society, they tend to keep their militarized system of political violence and they keep using it. Because all they know is violence. And they have no incentive to stop using it because it served them well until now, right?
Meeting!
They got the power, right? So they keep using violence because their victory rewarded their violence. And if it worked to remove their opponents, then why should they stop using it? In almost every single case, revolutionaries turn on the general population with their violence after taking over, or on each other, and they institute mass purges, executions, etc. George Washington types who give up their violent power voluntarily in the name of a peaceful transition of power, they are unicorns in human history. That's what makes them so admirable, because they're rare. With all this being said, despite all my whining, Mike and Brian are great storytellers who made one of the best animated series of all time in Avatar: The Last Airbender. And I, and most of us, cannot touch their feet as writers or content creators ourselves. But knowing where these giants went wrong will help us, the little people, know where to tread in our Mike and Brian are great storytellers who made one of the best animated series of all time.
So true, so true.
In Avatar The Last Airbender. And I, and most of us, cannot touch their feet as writers or content creators ourselves. But knowing where these giants went wrong will help us, the little people, know where to tread in our own storytelling journeys. Also, I wrote a book once.
Exactly, that's why I'm watching this.
So nobody cared about that, not enough to even complain about the thing. So having an autistic idiot like myself complaining about your show all the time is still a sign of incredible success for your story, guys. Being ignored is the worst criticism, right? But seriously, Mike and Brian...
That's true. That's actually very true. Oh my gosh. Like, you could say my art is still ignored, but like... When I was younger and I'd do fan art, I wouldn't do the fan art in the intention that I would get popular, because I was obviously doing the fan art because I liked the show I was watching. I've always done fan art ever since I was little. Just like I said with Ever After High, that was before I even had social media. I was just doing stuff like that because I enjoyed the content and I wanted to make content based on content that I enjoyed, and I still do that today. But when I started posting on Instagram, there was like a moment where like I was like, I see all these artists who get so much praise for doing fan art, and I love their work and their work is great. Why can't I find my little niche and community and get attention as well? And I kind of still am in that phase, but not with my art, but with streaming, because that's also why I started streaming. I wanted to gain a community. I think that's why I like Twitch so much, because of the Twitch chat and the just the attention you get from like talking to other people about stuff. I just like that about social media, that you can converse about different things like that. And I'm grateful for the attention I have been getting, because I've only been streaming for like 5 months, and or 4 months. 4 months, almost being 5 months, I think. And I've like almost now I never stream without at least one live viewer, and that is insane. People stream for years and get 0 viewers and nobody listening to them, but I do, and that's crazy. And it might not be as much as like other people who get tens of thousands of people watching them live and talking to them, and eventually I don't need tens of thousands of people, but I do want to gain, like, that's why I love when people do come into my chat and actually have conversations with me, because that's the best thing. That's why I started streaming, because I just love the ability to just talk to people like that. So that's really what I use Twitch for. So, and definitely getting ignored in that way definitely hurts. So yeah, I agree with him. Ramble, that's all I do.
Ryan should be proud of what they accomplished, especially since Korra has some good elements as well. Thank you all for listening to my ramblings. Have a good day, my friends.
Is this a good video? Who made this video? The toxic feminine video. Who made that? Is it in my nonsense? Oh, he made it. I was like, this looks this. I looked at the thumbnail of the video, and it said wholesome and toxic, and I was like, ew, what is this video? And seeing the title of it, Avatar: The Two Sides of Femininity, also makes me feel like, ew. I don't know why, but it's by Pilgram's Pass, and Pilgram's Pass, we literally just watched the whole video, and it was really good. I mean, not the whole video, I started in a midpoint. I started a few minutes in, but, you know.
This holiday, Verizon has the deal that gets better and better and better.
Don't buy Verizon phones.
And Azula are two sides of the same coin. This has become increasingly obvious to me, and sometimes it feels like the show is beating us over the head with it. You know, due to some of the imagery and themes. Yet, did anyone else notice this? Wait a minute. Fire lady, opposite of water lady. Oh my god! In all seriousness,
Wait a second. Where's the video I look for? Oh.
So over the years, I have made a number of these why ... is a masterpiece videos, and people really seem to like them. Now, I'm sure you can understand that I have to be very selective about which titles I choose for this particular series of videos, because to say something is a masterpiece is a very bold statement, and it's not something one should throw around carelessly. That said, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that the original Avatar: The Last Airbender series is a masterpiece. So as always, let us break it down in three categories: filmmaking, story and characters, and then its effect on me personally. Now, I will be getting into spoilers, so if you haven't seen the show, please do so and come back, because trust me,
This video was by Fanatics. Why Avatar: The Last Airbender is the masterpiece.
it's well worth it. I think it's more than fair to say that part of what makes the show so iconic is the very specific style of filmmaking that it employs. This style of animation is quite honestly breathtaking to look at. It has this beautiful blend of the more modern cartoon look and feel that was very popular at the time of the show's release, with these brilliant exaggerated looks and movements that really take advantage of the animation form, as stuff like this would never really work in live action. But the show also has this incredibly timeless, old-school feel that I have never seen in any other mainstream animated series. It is a show made by people who love films. There are very clear influences from the works of many legendary Asian directors, from Akira Kurosawa to Zhang Yimou, something I'll be exploring even more of in next week's video. But it also draws from a lot of other genres, with episodes like Zuko Alone and The Chase having a little bit of that Sergio Leone, John Ford Western flair, where most animated shows feature a lot of movement all the time, with super vibrant visuals which can sometimes feel cheap or attention-seeking. Avatar's visual language is mature well beyond its years. Part of the reason this show really stood out to me when I was younger is because of how unique and stunning it looks. There is this measured precision to the imagery that is rarely seen in any medium. The 4:3 aspect ratio is taken full advantage of with these genius compositions which do truly look like paintings. And that's another terrific thing about this show. It looks and feels like art. The way it utilizes color, lighting, composition have been so inspiring to me as a filmmaker. There are countless shots from my own personal work that I can safely say would not exist had I not watched this show. I honestly believe that every aspiring filmmaker should watch this series at least once, purely to absorb all the genius cinematography and editing techniques on display. It is without question the most beautiful piece of animation I've ever seen. I could honestly talk just about the aesthetic beauty of the show for hours, but I won't bore you with that. We also need to talk about the world building and how that is elevated by the terrific filmmaking. The creators first...
I never really watched Star Wars Clone Wars because I wasn't really into Star Wars, but whenever I saw the episodes like on TV, like the ads for the episodes, a new episode, I was like, hey, that looks really interesting. It's just something I never caught. There was like a Lego Star Wars series that I did watch and I did like, so there's that. Never really got into Star Wars. So, Maybe it's I never also got into Marvel until like I would just watch the big blockbusters. Like I watched Infinity Wars and I watched Black Panther. I didn't watch Endgame because I was so mad at Infinity Wars ending. I was like, what the heck? And I watched a bit of Winter Soldier. I didn't watch the full thing, but my dad was watching it and it was like on the TV. I just watched some of that. And I thought that was interesting. And now I'm like immersed in the Marvel universe, and I used to be like, DC is better! But like not movie-wise, but just like, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm talking about. The comics, I don't know. When I was little, I was just like, DC is better. I don't know for what reason. I just find it more interesting. Actually, I do know for what reason. I don't even know what I'm talking about. I like that DC incorporated Greek mythology because I very much enjoy Greek mythology. I've always been interested in it. Even before I read Percy Jackson, I studied Greek mythology. In my school, I went to a really cool elementary and middle school. Elementary school in particular, though, because that's the one I'm talking about now. Where I got to learn about we had just had a project where we got to study whatever we wanted, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is awful, what am I gonna pick? And this is how I feel now, because like the project I have to do right now in my school is gives me a lot of options, and there's so many ways I can take it because this is a topic I'm very interested in. So kind of frustrating, but I'll figure it out. But back then I picked Greek mythology, and so I just learned a bunch, and that's very broad since there's hundreds of different Greek myths, and like so many different versions of one Greek myth. But I still did that, and I think I told one about I told Perseus's in general, his Greek myth. That's the one I focused on. And that was in my elementary school, and it was one of the projects I remember so much. And because of my love for Greek mythology in elementary school, when I went to middle school and we our book club, our mandatory school reading book, you know, you always get mandatory school reading book, was Percy Jackson. I was obviously in love with it because it's all about Greek myths and using it in a modern lens to talk about modern characters, which is so fun. But this is not about Percy Jackson, is it? I don't even know why I went on to this tangent to begin with, but yeah.
Other evidence of the show's quality. I will just quickly say about the world building that I love how much variety there is in every little corner of this world. It's very clear that they are drawing cultural influences from the real world, and they make that obvious enough for us to see a little bit of our world in this fictional universe, whilst also keeping things different enough so that everything feels individually tailored to this specific story. The music is also operating on a completely different level to most other animated shows. I would honestly liken some of the music to that of Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, in the sense that the themes and motifs are so iconic that you know exactly what you're listening to within seconds. There is this elegant simplicity to the way the music is composed that I find to be absolutely beautiful. So much so that I would send over some pieces from the score to my composer on my film as an inspiration for certain scenes. I love it that much. Now finally, we cannot talk about this show without talking about the execution of those action sequences and the bending. That stuff is, once again, on an entirely different playing field to everyone else. It is ridiculous how creative and downright badass some of the action scenes are. The idea of being able to control the elements is cool enough, but basically anything that could be done with that idea is done, and then some. I mean, the idea that waterbenders can be powered up by the moon, which then allows them to bloodbend, is kind of sick and twisted, but also insanely cool at the same time. And of course, a blind earthbender seeing through her connection with the earth, and then developing metal bending as a result of her powerful connection. It's so cool. It's so creative. Once again, you can really see the influence that it draws from old school martial arts films. The way that certain characters move around whilst bending is very reminiscent of the wire fu style of action seen in Hong Kong and Chinese cinema, for example. The legendary Orson Welles once said that a film is never really good unless the camera is an eye in the head of a poet. And that quote is so perfect for this show, because it is pure poetry. Look no further than that final Agni Kai scene between Zuko and Azula.
Oh my gosh, that scene is honestly beautiful. The music, the composer, of the music, it just ties everything together. It's so emotional and beautiful.
Do you have to say anything to prove this particular point? So I'm just going to shut up and play the scene for a little bit.
This is just also major spoilers if you haven't guessed already. Like, they're spoiling the whole show for you. Just saying.
Right then, on to the next section. Unlike many animated shows, which feature a very frenetic and fast-paced structure as to maintain the attention of its younger viewers, The Last Airbender really takes its time. This is an incredibly patient and methodical show that moves at a pace that is relaxed enough for us to feel immersed in the world and the lives of these characters, but also has a brilliant sense of forward momentum and energy, never allowing us to forget the end goal of Aang defeating the Fire Lord. I made a video while I'll go talking about how certain films can feel like their narrative is structured like a video game, with a clear A to Z style story, whilst diverging just enough with these side mission type moments for us to feel truly immersed and invested in that world. I think that The Last Airbender's structure is very reflective of that. There is such a perfect balance of story-driven episodes where we really feel the stakes and the weight of everything. So when Aang finally faces off against Ozai, you can feel the insurmountable danger and tension. When Zuko and Azula clash for the last time, you feel every single piece of emotion and motivation without the characters having to say a word. Actually, you could probably just watch the last hour of the show on mute if you wanted to, and you'd still get exactly what they want to convey. But this is only because there are these character-driven episodes, like Zuko alone, Tales of Ba Sing Se, The Beach, or even The Avatar and the Fire Lord to a certain degree, where you can sit back and enjoy these beautifully written characters and almost appreciate these episodes as their own short film. And it's the fact that these two different kinds of storytelling are allowed to inform and complement one another, that the show can be perceived as equally character and story driven. Now, speaking of those characters, some of the best ever, I mean, no real arguments can be made as to the emotional and intellectual complexity of these characters. Aang is just a wonderful protagonist, and his constant, nearly unending optimism can only be matched by his very human and down-to-earth acknowledgement of his personal mistakes and shortcomings. Katara often gets a bit of slack for being the least interesting of the main characters, but I think that's because she is in many ways the heart of the show, and the rock that keeps everyone else grounded. I would very much liken her to characters like Captain America or Jon Snow, whose moral compass is verging on incorruptible. With these characters, it's not about whether or not they change, but it's more about how their existence changes others. And Katara is a beautiful example of that. I think having a non-bender on the team is also a stroke of genius, as it really shows the dynamic between those gifted with special abilities and those who have to work a little harder to keep up with everyone else. And this is embodied perfectly in Sokka, who is so much more than just the comedic relief. And I especially loved his episodes where he had to get serious, and his character was truly challenged, like the Black Sun Siege and the Boiling Rock. He really rose up as the top-tier character in those storylines. Toph is, in my opinion, one of the best uses of subverting expectations, as she is one of the most unexpectedly badass characters ever. Zuko, well, we all know how great Zuko is. There are hundreds of video essays just about his character arc alone. He is basically the Jaime Lannister of the animation world, except his arc is actually fulfilled. And of course, Iroh, everyone's favorite uncle. Pure perfection. More about him next week, though. The best compliment I can give to the characterization in this show is that even the villains, or the villain's friends, or the ruthless assassin who never bloody speaks, or the cabbage merchant and the tough-as-nails immigration officer who won't let his cabbages on the ship, are all more unique and enthralling to watch than most protagonists on an average show. Every single character, down to the animals, could and perhaps should get their own series. It's that good, in my opinion. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of this section, for anyone wondering what my personal favorites and facts are in regards to the show, here are some of them. My favorite character is probably Toph or Iroh, but I do like Zuko and Azula a lot as well. I find the Fire Nation characters to be somewhat reminiscent of the Lannisters from Game of Thrones, without all the incest and murder, but I find these kinds of complex family dynamics very interesting. I also very much appreciate Sokka's constant sarcasm. My favorite episode would be the finale, but I also really love the Avatar and the Fire Lord. My favorite duo is actually Sokka and Zuko. Like I said, I really like the dynamic they formed in the Boiling Rock arc.
Me too.
My favorite couple is Sokka and Suki. I like that pairing a lot, although Zuko and Mei are pretty fun as well. My favorite past Avatar, like most people, is Kyoshi, if we're not counting one. My favorite White Lotus member, aside from Iroh, is Pian Dao, because once again, I really like the idea of someone not born with powers bettering themselves to a point where they can match those with supernatural gifts. That's why I like Batman so much. Every single which element would you bend test on the internet has given me Firebender, which I'm pretty happy with. Even though it's not quite as good as The Last Airbender, I really love Legend of Korra as well, and I would not be opposed to doing a video on that at some point in the future. Despite the fact that I really like M. Night Shyamalan, The Last Airbender live-action film is my least favorite film of all time. I already have a video on that, which is nearly 2 years old now, actually. And I also have a video about how I would tackle the live-action series coming up next week, hence why I've said I'll emphasize certain things next week. Anyway, let's get into it. Now, unlike a lot of people who seem to like the show, I'm not going to use up this section to talk about how I'm Asian and the show is partly Asian inspired, so it made me feel like I had a voice or any of that nonsense. I don't need a TV series to remind me of my self-worth, and more importantly, I don't relate to characters just because they kind of look like me. I relate to characters who think like me and feel the ups and downs that I feel in my personal life, and this show has that. The Last Airbender features people who have such a clear idea of what they want to do with their lives and are doing anything and everything they can to get there.
Wow. Was that a targeted attack? I'm not Asian, but I don't relate to characters just because they kind of look like me. I definitely don't relate to characters because they kind of look like me, but I just have, like, you know, like, I don't even know who I have no idea who my favorite character in Arcane is. But, like, every time Mel and Echo from Arcane were put, like, in any danger, I was like, no! Not the brother, not the sister! So...
Just like Inception, just like Whiplash. And I relate to this unrelenting desire to accomplish the goals that you set out for yourself so much. But the show also brings about this very mature idea of sometimes feeling inadequate and always failing and feeling like all is lost because of constant failure and hard work not paying off. And it is so inspiring because ultimately this is a story about bouncing back, about recovering and growing from mistakes and failures and triumphing above them, about finding light at the end of the tunnel no matter what. And that is something that everyone can relate to. It is also conveying these themes amidst being a story of family and the pros and cons and ups and downs of the familial unit. It is a complex exploration of the importance of loyalty towards one's family, both biological and the family that you choose. It's a story of friendship and unlikely friendships that are formed through unexpected events. A story of different people from all over the world with different personalities and skill sets coming together to achieve one goal, just like Inception. That's why I think any filmmaker can relate. And of course, Avatar: The Last Airbender, at its core perhaps, could be interpreted as a simple, good old-fashioned love story. It beautifully shows the difficulties that can come with unrequited love, both romantic and familial. And in that area, it's just as heartbreaking as it is heartwarming. And that is a testament to how well handled everything is. It still shocks me to this day that this was a show kind of meant for kids, because the themes are so applicable to everyone. There is a universality to it that is rare in any piece of entertainment. And yet it is also so precise and specific in its execution. And all of that is why I believe Avatar: The Last Airbender is a masterpiece.
Alright. We watched a lot of videos and we blabbered on about a lot of stuff. I did. And I kind of feel like this is a good ending. So, don't forget to watch the people that I watched. Just like and subscribe if you'd like. This was Flick Fanatics. Why Avatar: The Last Airbender was a masterpiece. Yeah. I hope you enjoyed this stream. Have a good day, afternoon, evening, or night. Don't forget to drink some water. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Bye.